Travis Scott and others have been just smacked with a $2 billion lawsuit in the wake of the Astroworld disaster. So let's get right into this story. So, a Texas attorney on Thursday filed a $2 billion lawsuit on behalf of 282 victims of the deadly Astroworld Festival, adding to the legal woes faced by Travis Scott and other parties involved in the ill-fated concert in Houston. By the way, if you stumble upon this and you actually were there, feel free to give your thoughts about this whole situation. So the defendants stood to make an exorbitant amount of money off this event, and they still chose to cut corners, cut costs, and put attendees at risk. San Antonio based attorney Thomas Henry in a news release. My clients want to ensure the defendants are held responsible for their actions, and they want to send a message to all performers, event organizers, and promoters that what happened at Astroworld cannot happen again, he added. The lawsuit seeks up to $2 billion in damages from a long list of defendants, including Scott, Drake, event organizers, Live Nation, Apple Music, and NRG Stadium. So, in an interview with Hollywood Life last week, Henry said his clients range in age from teens to 40, which, by the way, I don't know if anyone's actually aware of this, but I believe like a 9-year-old kid was killed because of this, died because of this whole situation. So they have injuries ranging from heart attacks to heart issues to brain injuries to spinal injuries to broken bones, broken legs, eye injuries, internal organ injuries, bruising, and bleeding, the high powered lawyer told the outlet. In addition to the severe physical injuries, Henry said there is just a whole calamity, emotional injuries that were suffered as well. Those who were injured are still very traumatized because they had to step over dead bodies. They didn't have a choice because there was nowhere to move. These people were trapped. The crushing effect was so heavy and so hard they couldn't breathe, they couldn't get out, he told Hollywood Life. So Henry said his law firm was focusing on Travis and Drake in attempts to get a hold of their cell phones. We already have started this process and are going to make sure that we get him and Drake's cell phones because there are communication systems in play that will be in those cell phones, he told the outlet. Every type of communication that he does, whether it be in his audio or his video or his text messages or his cell phone calls, we are going to make sure that they are all preserved, Henry added. Now, this is actually a very big deal, right? To anyone who ends up stumbling upon this, right? The reason why this is actually a big deal is that let's say that he was literally notified, right, by event organizers or by people in his crew and all this kind of stuff, right? Where they told him, like, hey, people are dying, people died, or hey, we need to stop this thing. And if he responds, like, no, who cares? No, just like responding just no, or just basically, if he shows basically reckless endangerment to the crowd and or purposely ignoring statements from his crew members saying like, hey, people died, we need to stop. And if he responds like, hey, no, screw them, guess what? He is going to be hammered in the court system, right? Like he is going to get hammered probably pretty much nonstop. And I mean, they probably will like settle for a large amount of money, but we're talking like if they are able to prove in a very direct way that he knew what was going on, he is going to have to pay out so much money. And even with Drake, if Drake knew what was going on and he responded in a certain type of way, he could end up facing a pretty hefty bill as well, right? Now, personally, I don't think that Drake's probably going to be really hammered too much in this situation, but it really depends on if the court is actually going to allow them, like allow the prosecutor to actually go through their phones and see what the hell was going on, right? Because again, it may not sound that like a big deal, but if their phones reveal that they knew what was going on and still continue to perform regardless of the situation, that's going to be a really big deal. Especially, it'd be also a big deal if it's also exposed in his communications that like his apology video and all this other stuff were all for show because he, one, potentially does not care about his fans at all. And if that's the case, and if that's exposed, his career is probably going to be at stake. So the latest blockbuster lawsuit comes on the heels of Houston attorney Tony Busby's $750 million suit filed on behalf of 125 victims, also against Scott, Drake, Live Nation, Epic Records, Apple Music, and other entities. So I believe this means that there's actually two separate lawsuits totaling basically $2.7 billion dollars. Now that's crazy. So among his clients is the family of 21-year-old Axel Acosta Avila, one of the 10 people who died in the tragedy. At least 140 lawsuits have been filed in the wake of the disaster, CNN reported, citing Harris County District Court records. A spokesperson for Scott told Fox News Digital last week that he's still actively exploring routes of connection with families affected by the tragedy. I think that is full of nonsense. I don't think he's actually really doing anything. I think he's basically doing everything that his lawyer is basically telling him, like, hey, do this, do this, do this, then shut up, right? Because, look, I believe that the event organizer, Live Nation, and basically Travis Scott himself are probably going to be hit pretty heavily in this lawsuit, right? I mean, it just depends on like, how much can they prove, right? Because here's the thing. If they can prove that Travis Scott willingly did things on purpose, knowing full well that bad things were happening, that people had already died, and he continued to perform. Again, if they can prove. Because, some videos do show that he pretty much knew, or that people basically was trying to, let them know. But the thing is, if they have a proven record within his communications stating on his own behalf, like well, basically coming from him himself, that he actually knew what was going on and he still continued to go on because he just did not care about the concert goers, then that's where it comes to a situation where he's going to have to pay out a lot of money if he doesn't have like insurance, right? But he most likely has insurance, probably a very good insurance situation. So he's probably not going to have to pay too much money out of pocket for himself, but his reputation is going to get wrecked. The amount of money that he's going to be charged from insurance companies is going to skyrocket. He might not even be able to be insured in the future. He might have to self insure through his own means, which could be another issue as well. So it gets into a really sticky situation, right? Because let's say he is covered by insurance. Let's say that the insurance does pay out to or settles to these families, right? For millions and millions of dollars because these families are for sure going to get millions of dollars, right? Like that is going to happen, right? Now, of course, there's always like a tiny chance that it won't, but you can pretty much assume that that is what's going to actually happen in this situation. That being said, the after effects for him in his business could be massive, right? Like this is like a type of situation that could potentially bankrupt an audio, like an artist, right? This could potentially be basically that point in someone's career where like, okay, now everything's just downhill from now, right? Will that actually happen? Who knows? But There's a lot of damages that are going to happen to Travis Scott because of this situation, right? But also, this kind of goes to show you that, you know, you definitely need insurance when you're doing things that could potentially have some sort of risk to it, like your car insurance, business insurance, right? Health insurance, life insurance that people rely on you. Because, for example, on like a side note, let's say that you went to this concert and let's say that you were the main breadwinner of your household, right? And you passed away, but you did not have life insurance, right? Regardless of this lawsuit situation, if you did not have life insurance and you had like a wife or a husband and kids that relied on your income, right? So now that you passed away due to this horrible situation, they are basically screwed, right? But if you did have life insurance, they would be taken care of, right? So this is why, regardless of this specific situation, if you end up engaging or doing things that is somewhat risky, it's always a good idea to do some research on insurance because it could protect you financially. It can protect your family financially. And I know a lot of people don't really think about that, but this is like a good example of a situation that is basically like, whoa, like you would never think that something like this would end up happening, but it's situations like this that kind of goes and shows people the importance of having insurance so that your family can be protected if something bad were to happen to you, right? Not only that, having good health insurance could also help you in this situation because guess what? Depending on your health insurance, depending on your coverage, if you were to get injured in a situation like this and you went to the hospital, they could take care of you and potentially you would not be destroyed by the medical bills if you had good health insurance. And a lot of people do not have good health insurance. We're not going to talk about the whole like health insurance issue, dilemma, crisis, all that kind of stuff, right? But this is why you need health insurance. This is why you need life insurance if people rely on your income. And this is why performers and people who own a business that interact with other people need insurance as well, simply to protect themselves in case the worst were to ever happen. By the way, if you want to learn how to get out of debt, go to 40inbox.com.